Please welcome Dean David Elwood. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden.
So we have time for just a few questions. The Vice President's schedule is very tight, as you can imagine. But we have microphones on 4 locations, right here, here, and here. So I just want to remind you what a good question consists of here at the Kennedy School. Please identify yourself. Keep it short with one thought, and it ends with a question mark. So we'll start right over here.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Vice President. My name is Will. I'm a junior at the college. My question is, in retrospect, do you believe that the United States should have acted earlier in Syria, and if not, why is now the right moment?
No. Maybe I can ask staff to help.
It's working.
Turn this one on, but I'll use this in the meantime. Is this working? There we go, okay. The answer is no for 2 reasons. One, the idea of identifying a moderate middle has been a chase America has been engaged in for a long time. We Americans think in every country in transition, there's a Thomas Jefferson hiding beside some rock or a James Madison beyond one sand dune. The fact of the matter is the ability to identify a moderate middle in Syria there was no moderate middle, because the moderate middle are made up of shopkeepers, not soldiers. They're made up of people who, in fact, were ordinary elements of the middle class of that country. And what happened was, and their history will record this, because I'm finding that former administration officials, as soon as they leave, write books, which I think is inappropriate. But at any rate, no, I'm serious. I do think it's inappropriate. At least, give the guy a chance to get out of office. What my constant cry was that our biggest problem is our allies. Our allies in the region were our largest problem in Syria. The Turks were great friends, and I have a great relationship with Erdogan, which I've just spent a lot of time with. The Saudis, the Emiratis, etc. What were they doing? They were so determined to take down Assad and essentially have a proxy Sunni-Shia war. What did they do? They poured hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of tons of weapons into anyone who would fight against Assad, except that the people who were being supplied were al-Nusra and al-Qaeda and the extremist elements of jihadis coming from other parts of the world. Now you think I'm exaggerating? Take a look. Where did all of this go? So now what's happening? All of a sudden, everybody's awakened because this outfit called ISIL, which was al-Qaeda in Iraq, which when they were essentially thrown out of Iraq, found open space and territory in eastern Syria, work with al-Nusra, who we declared a terrorist group early on, and we could not convince our colleagues to stop supplying them. So what happened? Now all of a sudden, I don't want to be too facetious, but they have seen the Lord. Now the president's been able to put together a coalition of our Sunni neighbors, because America can't once again go in to a Muslim nation and be the aggressor. It has to be led by Sunnis to go and attack a Sunni organization. And so what do we have for the first time? Now Saudi Arabia has stopped the funding going in. Saudi Arabia is allowing training on its soil of American forces under Title 10 open training. The Qataris have cut off their support for the most extreme elements of the terrorist organizations. And the Turks, President Erdogan told me, he's an old friend, said, you were right, we let too many people through. Now they're trying to seal their border. So this idea that somehow it was within our power early on in this process, and there were a couple former members of the administration who were arguing we should give, quote, the opposition, which we couldn't identify as moderate, by the way, I'm serious about that, give them ground-to-air launch missiles. Can you imagine what would have happened if that had been done? Does anybody doubt they would have been in the hands of al-Nusra or al-Qaeda or Khorasan Group or ISIL? There's a difference between, you know, it's good to be both tough and smart. They're a pair that's required. So now what's happened is everyone in the region has awakened. And now under U.S. leadership, the coalition was put together, and they're moving. You notice what Turkey did today. What Erdogan told me last Thursday he would do. Asked me not to say anything until it was voted on. They voted in the Turkish parliament to allow Turkish ground forces in to take on ISIL. Turkish airspace be able to be used by NATO and by other allies. Turkish airspace be able to accommodate our drones. So this idea that there was an option there is fiction. It did not exist. We could have poured, if we could find every moderate we could find, and by the way, now it's public, we have been training moderate forces. But we've been very select in making sure who they were and vetting them. And now the number is classified, but there are more than several thousand in country now, and there will be more. But it's absolute fiction to suggest that early on, if we had just acted more quickly. It took Saudi Arabia to figure out ISIL's objective wasn't Ramadi, it was Mecca and Medina. It took a while for the Iranians to realize the existential threat to Iran was a radical Sunni extremist terrorist group. It took a while for Turkey, a Sunni nation, to figure out that ISIL was a direct, immediate threat to their well-being. It took a little while for Russia to figure out that all those Chechens that are making their way to eastern Syria, going back to Chechnya, is not a good thing. So now we have a coalition. But it's still going to be a hell of a long fight. A hell of a long fight. But it cannot be, even if we wanted to, it cannot be our fight alone. This cannot be turned into a U.S. ground war against another Arab nation in the Middle East. Hope that answers the question.
Next question.
I can do yes or no. I can do some more. No, I can do some more. And the same principles that relate to human interaction, they are critical in foreign policy as well. And people can tell whether you respect them. People can tell whether or not you mean it. And so it matters. A little bit of humility goes a long, long way. And guess what? It's warranted, the humility.